When learning Chumash with Rashi, it helps to understand what was Rashi's intention and what was he trying to accomplish with his commentary. Now, for example, there are commentaries out there that really just collect all kinds of different statements from the rabbis, midrashic statements, like Ma'am Loez or the Midrash says. And with those type of books, there is no decision-making in what specific midrash will be included or will be excluded. It's just a collection of statements from the sages. Rashi, however, is really writing a perush of the Torah. He's really explaining the Torah, and he himself says that he came to explain the pshat, the simple meaning of the storyline of the Torah, and when help is needed, so he adds comments, and when help is not needed, he doesn't comment. But we have to also address another part of Rashi, in that many times he brings statements from the rabbis, from Midrash, and those Midrashim that he's bringing are not necessarily looked at as a pshat. They're looked at as a different or deeper way of looking at the pasuk. So the question comes up, why is Rashi bringing ideas that are not necessarily pshat in his comments? So one way to look at it is this. Rashi wants you to properly understand the Chumash. Now, obviously, a person cannot only study the written Torah without the oral Torah, because the two together make up the full body of Torah. So Rashi comes to include the statements from the oral Torah, which the sages write, when it's necessary in order to understand the pshat or even a deeper pshat. And sometimes he also feels that the statements of the sages are so crucial to understanding ideas that he includes them in his comments. Now, let us try to appreciate in this week's parsha, Parshat Vayeshev, an example of Rashi bringing a midrash and how we can appreciate what his intentions are and what to do with the midrash. And with Hashem's help, we'll also offer up a deeper explanation of the midrash itself while we're at it. So the verse starts off, Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz migorei aviv be'eretz Canaan. Yaakov settled in the land of his father's sojourning, in the land of Canaan. Yaakov bikesh leshev beshalva. Yaakov wanted to settle in tranquility, with peace and a comfortable situation in the land of Canaan. And what happened instead? Kafatz alav roglo shel Yosef. The whole ordeal with Yosef, that he was pulled away from him and taken down to Egypt, and Yaakov mourned for many, many years and suffered tremendous heartache from this. This is what happened instead. So essentially what comes out from the reading of the verse implies Yaakov settled in the land, but in fact, instead the opposite happened. He had hardships and he was pulled away from the land of Israel and had to go down to Egypt. So it's not true, he didn't settle. So for that reason, the rabbis explain to us, and the Mefarshim, add to this idea that really what it means is Yaakov only wanted to settle, but he never actually got to settle. And what was the idea? What resulted of his desires to settle in the land of Canaan? Instead, he was, suffered and was dragged down to Egypt. Now, of course, we have to appreciate why was the outcome not as he wished. Yaakov was a very righteous, holy person. If anyone in the world deserved good, it was him. So why did he get the opposite of what he wanted? So the truth is, the Midrash continues to shed light on this issue, and actually, on a simple level, is a source of criticism for Yaakov's entire reason of wanting to settle. The Midrash continues, answering for Hashem, so to speak, responding. It says, "Tzadikim mevakshim leshev beshalva," that tzadikim in general want to be able to settle and be tranquil and have a tranquil living and conducive situations to learning Torah and doing mitzvot. So Hashem responds to these tzaddikim and says, it's not enough what you have prepared for you in the world to come. You also want to relax and have a good life in this world. And of course, the simple reading of this midrash seems to be critical of the tzaddikim that want to settle and have it easy. And the Mefarshim address this on Yaakov, meaning that Yaakov had a hard life. He dealt with Lavan, he dealt with Esav, he dealt with Shechem, he had the whole ordeal with Dinah. He was tricked so many times, he worked hard many, many years. Now he finally gets through all of that and wants to finally relax a little bit and have some peace in mind. Now, we shouldn't be confused. Yaakov did not want to go to Hawaii for vacation. Yaakov wanted to serve Hashem, learn Torah, and do mitzvot, but he wanted to do it without all of the external things that come to detract and bother a person from his focus on ruchniyut, on spirituality, and on Torah. So, but we have to ask ourselves, if that's what Yaakov really wanted, was ultimately a good thing, to just serve Hashem in the best conditions and to serve Him as best as possible, so why did Yaakov get the opposite? Why did he get thrown down to Egypt instead? So the idea it could be understood like this. Really, Yaakov himself was on the highest spiritual level one can imagine. And really, according to just him on a personal level, it was fitting for him to relax and have an easier life in a sense where he could just devote himself to ascending higher and higher spiritually. Learning the deepest secrets of Kabbalah and doing the mitzvot on the highest of levels, like we see the great tzaddikim have sometimes in the past. You see they had wealth and they had an easy life and they just excelled in spirituality. However, the issue is that really the Jewish people at the time were still beginning to become a nation. And that, on a spiritual sense, they were beginning to develop as a nation of Israel. And unfortunately, because we're still coming off of the sins of the prior generations, so the Jewish people themselves, the tribes of Israel, the 12 sons and their children and their future children that were going to be born, were not ready yet to take on the role of Klal Yisrael. What I mean is to receive the Torah and fulfill the divine mission of transforming this world into a holy world. They still were blemished from the original sin. So what essentially had to happen was, in order for the Jewish people to be ready to receive the Torah and to take on this great mission that we were created for, they first had to go through the Galut of Mitzrayim. Now, it's interesting, there's a Zohar that asks, why did the Jewish people have to suffer so much in Mitzrayim? Rabbi Eliezer asks Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai himself, why did they suffer such a harsh exile? And why did they further have to suffer in such a harsh kingdom under a harsh king like Paro? And the essential answer is, according to Kabbalah, that there was a spiritual rectification, a spiritual tikkun needed to accomplish before the Jewish people would be on a high enough level, fixed enough to represent Torah and to do their divine mission. So they had to suffer so hard in Mitzrayim, but the suffering in Mitzrayim prepared them to become nation of Israel at Har Sinai. What comes out from this explanation is that really Yaakov was not wrong to ask for shalva. He wasn't wrong to ask for the absolute best spiritual conditions to serve Hashem on the highest level. But for the Jewish people, it wasn't time yet. They had to go through Mitzrayim, and after Mitzrayim, they would be ready. So what is a beautiful way to appreciate this really discussion between Hashem in response to Yaakov's request? The simple way to look at it is that Hashem was disagreeing with Yaakov. But we could really look at it also a little bit deeper, because there's an idea that God fulfills the requests of the righteous people, and we know God only wants what's best for us. So what we could actually look at it like this, when Hashem says it's not enough for the tzaddikim to have the world to come, but they also want to relax and have the good life in this world, that Hashem actually agrees with that idea. So if he agrees, then why is Yosef being stripped away from Yaakov, and why is all this suffering happening? Because in order to have the good life in this world as well, we have to first go through the obstacles and the challenges in order to reach the good life. So Hashem is essentially saying to Yaakov, you want the good life in this world, you want the world to be fixed, and you want, mashiach to come, you have to go through the troubles first. Yosef is going to be taken from you. It's going to be very harsh. You'll be dragged down to Egypt. You'll suffer tremendously in Egypt, but this will happen all as quick as possible, so that instead of in 400 years you'll come out of Egypt, you'll come out of Egypt in only 210 years. And then you'll receive the Torah, and this whole story will run its course. And essentially the Jewish people could have merited, after Har Sinai, to go straight to Yerushalayim and live happily ever after. It's only the Chet HaEgel that caused a further delay. And it's also, after some time traveling in the desert, it's the Chet of the Meraglim that caused a even further delay. So the truth is, Yaakov's idea of reaching the ultimate goal of a Mashiach in a perfect world wasn't so far away had we lived up to our 100% potential, because really the Jews could have made it within a short time after leaving Mitzrayim. And so through this we could appreciate, the depth of Chazal really shedding deep light in each of the different ideas that are hinted to in the Torah, and we can also appreciate why Rashi has to bring not only the explanations for the simple meaning, but he also needs to fuse together the Torah Sheba'al Peh with the Torah Shebichtav, the written and oral Torah, to appreciate and understand the deep messages that are really latent within the surface level of the text.